Every cultivator sucked in a breath of cold air, feeling a chill all over their bodies. With such a giant beast here, how could they fight? Everyone's eyes flashed with fear. Shwa shwa. The huge-faced beast started shaking again, its body swaying left and right, exactly the same as before. Piyu Jinshan. Yunxiao was shocked and cried out suddenly. Piyu Jinshan. Piyu Jinshan, who had been waiting for a long time, hurriedly shot out a ray of light from his hand. It rose into the air and continuously grew in size, emitting circles of power. At the same time, the terrain around him suddenly darkened, and the sky changed color. An aurora appeared in the sky, turning into a five-colored power that spread out and enveloped the entire earth. Even the entire White Surge city was within it. The scenery changed, and everyone was shocked to find that they were all alone. They had been fighting against an army of thousands, but in an instant, their opponents and companions had disappeared. The human martialist was both shocked and delighted. After all, this worldly illusion had been conjured by his companion. The more terrifying and abnormal it was, the better. While Li Yunxiao was pleasantly surprised, his heart was also filled with extreme regret. If he could have strengthened his confidence in Yunxiao at the beginning of the war, he would not have ended up in this state with his city and home destroyed, a large number of innocent civilians dead and injured, and a heavy loss of martial artists. Boom. The giant-faced beast was also trapped in the barrier, but it did not seem to be affected much. After its body swayed, it suddenly spat out a black light, exactly the same as before. The black light pierced through the sky and shattered the power of the enchantment. It blasted in the direction of the battleship. Everywhere it passed, it was like a mirror image that was constantly destroyed, but it was instantly repaired. A 1,000-mile strike had failed to hit the Netherworld warship. What? Ruo Xiang was shocked, and his face revealed a serious expression. The space the Netherworld battleship had been in was clearly right in front of them. How could it have shifted in such a short time? It was almost impossible for such a huge object to be moved away by the power of space, but the other party had actually done it. Li Yunxiao, is this all you can do? If you have the guts, come out and fight me to the death. Ruo Xiang laughed coldly. Everyone was silent, and for some reason, the voices of the others could not be heard at all, but Ruo Xiang's provocative voice could be clearly heard. Then, Yunxiao's voice rang out, filled with endless ridicule as he snorted coldly, "Death art? Do you remember the battle at the Red Moon City?" Ruo Xiang's face was full of anger. The battle in Red Moon City was known to the whole world, and it had gradually spread throughout the 4 seas. He had completely lost all his face. He roared, "Today, I'm going to wash away my shame. I swear I'm not a human if I don't kill you." He gradually calmed down and said in a cold voice, "Don't think that you can trap me with a barrier. I'll show you the true power of the deep-sea monsters. You didn't even use 1/10 of your strength to destroy the warship just now." Shwa shwa shwa. The huge-faced beast was suspended in the air. The world was dusky, and only 5 rays of light fell from the sky, covering the entire earth. As the huge-faced beast continued to tremble, the space around it seemed to change slightly. Circles of energy rippled out, but they were obstructed. However, the power of the obstruction grew stronger and stronger, and the range of the energy ripples continued to increase. Everyone was shocked to find that within this space, they could finally see the position of the huge-faced beast and Yunxiang. Ruo Xiang's expression was cold and fierce. He formed a seal with one hand in front of him and said coldly, "A legend from the deep sea, a contract that has been passed down for countless years. As a descendant of the true dragon, I command you to unleash your strongest power and tear apart the sky." The huge-faced beast's quivering suddenly stopped, and its eyes widened. Its pupils rapidly contracted, and layers of wrinkles began to appear on its skin. Roar. The huge-faced beast seemed to puff up its cheeks. It suddenly opened its mouth wide and roared. A huge black light shot out, shaking the barrier and creating a white passage that directly connected to the outside world. Not only that, but its wrinkled skin also suddenly opened up and became smooth. The entire space around it twisted and pushed outwards, directly opening the enchantment. Pu Jinshan's expression changed drastically, revealing an extremely shocked expression. Although this great five elements barrier was a replica, it was already very close to the origin elements of the five elements. It was as if the world was as chaotic as a chicken egg, and it was impossible to open it without an extremely strong power to break the barrier. He finally understood Yunxiao's concern. With a horrified expression, he threw out the five elements white fish in his hand. A white light rose into the air and turned into a white fish of light, swimming toward the huge-faced beast with golden patterns emerging on its body. Pu Jinshan took a deep breath and let out a loud roar. He grabbed at the void with both hands, and the power of the five elements gathered from the chaos of heaven and earth, landing on the white fish of light. The fish's body continued to grow rapidly, and in an instant, it became like a giant whale. However, there was still a huge gap between it and the huge-faced beast. The eyes of the huge-faced beast suddenly opened, as if it was puzzled, and it looked at the fish of light. Ruoxiang's eyes were shocked, and the hand seals in his hands changed. The huge-faced beast opened its mouth wide and paddled over with its 4 limbs. It also had 4 limbs, but they were insignificant compared to the huge face. Awu. The huge-faced beast's mouth met the fish of light and bit down. The entire fish head was in its mouth, and it kept swallowing. The body and tail of the luminous fish swayed violently, trying to break free, but it seemed to be of no use. It became smaller and smaller as it was swallowed by the huge-faced beast. Yunxiao wiped his sweat and said to Pu Jinshan, "Are you sure you can do it?" Pu Jinshan's body was also trembling violently, and the incantation seal on his right hand seemed to be on the verge of disappearing at any moment. He hurriedly grabbed his right wrist with his left hand, trying to stop the trembling. "Lord Yunxiao, he's almost dying." Pu Jinshan felt bitter in his heart and said, "If that 5 elements white fish is eaten by it, then this great 5 elements barrier will be finished." Yunxiao's face darkened. "I've wasted so much time setting up the array," he said angrily. "I didn't see you play any role, and now you're telling me you're done for?" Pu Jinshan smiled bitterly. "I was careless and let the other party bite me. If I can break free, I might be able to deal with it." Without saying a word, Yunxiao condensed a gust of wind and firepower in his hand and made a seal. The shadow of the crocodile appeared in the wind and firepower, then stood up in the air and transformed into a crocodile monster, roaring and rushing over. After that, Yunxiao changed the incantation gesture with his hand, and his whole body turned into thunder, expanding several times in an instant and turning into a big fat man. A ring of green lightning condensed around his body. He held the hammer in his right hand and raised it high. He formed a thunder seal with his left hand and slowly opened his fingers. A golden manhwa ancient character slowly rose from his palm and kept spinning. The color of the ring of lightning stars suddenly turned dark, and the hammer burst out with dazzling lightning, constantly letting out the cries of thousands of birds. The golden light of the manhwa ancient text gradually dissipated and began to gather into a green ball of lightning with purple light flashing within. Suddenly, Yunxiao clenched his fist and caught the ball of thunder in his hand. Then, he raised his arm and threw it at the beast. The ball of lightning let out a deafening screech and spun rapidly in the air. Bolts of lightning flickered from it, creating black patterns. The crocodile monster transformed into the size of a mountain, which was only the size of the giant-faced beast's nose. It kept roaring and punching with its fists. Streams of astral winds and divine flames crashed into the giant face, creating ripples that spread out in all directions. Ruo Xiang, on the other hand, formed hand seals with one hand and stood coldly on the head of the huge-faced beast. He did not move and only looked on quietly, the corners of his mouth revealing a mocking smile. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. He raised his head and looked forward. The ball of lightning entered his eyes, causing his pupils to shrink. The crocodile monster threw hundreds of punches in a row. Although it could not cause any damage to the huge-faced beast, it slowed down the speed at which it devoured the 5-element white fish. The crocodile monster seemed to have noticed the strange expression on Ruo Xiang's face. The speed of its fist slowed down a little, and it turned its head back in confusion. It immediately saw the ball of lightning flying towards it. The crocodile monster was completely stunned. Its face revealed a look of fear, and it opened its mouth as if it wanted to protest. Bang! It didn't say a word and directly exploded, instantly turning into countless wind and fire elements that fled in all directions. Pai pa. The ball of lightning rushed up, and thousands of lightning bolts flashed in the surroundings. They were like lightning dragons breaking through the sky, and the area was getting larger and larger. Everyone in the barrier looked at the sky in horror. None of them could contact the outside world or anyone else, but they could clearly see the huge-faced beast and Ruo Xiang's every move, as well as the powerful attacks around them. Ruo Xiang's face darkened, and his eyes revealed extreme resentment and unwillingness. The attack was launched by Yunxiao, and he would not be able to withstand it if he were alone. In other words, he would be defeated if the two of them fought again. Deep-sea giant beast, destroy everything. Ruo Xiang roared and sent an incantation seal into the head of the huge-faced beast. The giant-faced beast's eyes suddenly widened. It roared and opened its mouth wide. An invisible force was spat out from its mouth, shattering the surrounding space. The fish of light broke free in an instant, but it also trembled violently under the force, and the light on its body continued to collapse. When the ball of lightning was about to hit it, it was greatly hindered. Thousands of lightning bolts appeared, but they could not advance even an inch. Instead, they gradually dissipated. The entire Great Five Elements enchantment trembled as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting apart. Everyone felt extremely small under that mighty force, as if they could be destroyed at any moment. The power to break a world. This deep-sea beast is really terrifying. It actually has the power to tear a world apart. Yunxiao was shocked as he stared at the collapsing enchantment, but his eyes were as calm as water and as deep as the sky. The power to break the world? The ultimate level of martial Dao that can only be comprehended by a 9-star martial emperor? Piyu Jinshan's heart trembled, and his clothes were already soaked in cold sweat. When he heard this, he was even more terrified. Don't be distracted. Yunxiao shouted in a deep voice. Even with the power to break the world, it can't tear the chaotic chicken world made of the 5 elements. Piyu Jinshan hurriedly gathered his thoughts and kept performing hand seals. Yunxiao was right, but it was a pity that his barrier was not the real one, but only a high-quality imitation. But it would last for as long as it could, and he could not just wait for death. The fish of light seemed to have stabilized a little, and it pushed forward against the huge pressure. At the same time, 5 rays of light gathered from all directions, forming the 5-element rule above the huge-faced beast and blasting down. Boom! The 5 rays of light landed on the sky above the giant-faced beast, but before they could get close, they collapsed and turned into countless fragments of fluorescent light, scattering in the air. This result seemed to be within Piyu Jinshan's expectations. His expression was calm, and the speed of his hand seals became faster and faster. The broken light scattered in the air but was not extinguished. It gradually solidified and turned into a 5-elements prison, sealing the space. It kept spinning around the giant-faced beast and squeezed in, making an ear-piercing grinding sound. The warriors inside the barrier all felt their teeth ache. Some of the lower cultivators even felt pain in their eardrums, causing blood to flow out. The huge-faced beast was still spewing out the world-breaking force. The fish of light, the ball of lightning, and the 5 elements prison were struggling to resist, but they were constantly at a disadvantage. In the distance, the fleeing forces of wind and fire condensed into crocodiles again, lying motionlessly in the air, which made Yunxiao so angry that he vomited blood. Piyu Jinshan's face turned paler and paler, and he trembled as he said, "Lord Yunxiao, I really can't hold on any longer. The entire barrier is about to collapse." Yunxiao knew that he had done his best, so he nodded and said, "Let's directly detonate the barrier and make the final blow. We still can't hold Baichong City." He sighed. Inside the barrier, Li Yunxiao's face suddenly changed. He had heard Yunxiao's voice transmission and knew that he was going to be defeated. His face turned pale as he muttered bitterly, "I understand. Thank you, Lord Yunxiao." Piyu Jinshan's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance as he formed a seal in the air. A pattern suddenly appeared on the fish of light, and the entire barrier began to shrink, moving toward the fish of light. The fish's body flickered and disappeared, revealing the profound artifact 5 Elements Belly White Fish. Its aura was getting stronger and stronger. Bang! Bang! The 5 Elements prison instantly collapsed as the white fish sucked away all its energy. The ball of lightning could not withstand the impact and shattered into pieces. Boom! Boom! The thunderbolt suddenly turned into countless lightning bolts and shot out, like earthworms crawling in the sky. Everyone was shocked by the scene. Except for Li Yunxiao and a few others who had been reminded by Li Yunxiao, no one knew what was going to happen, and they all looked on in horror and vigilance. At this moment, the entire enchantment was compressed to the extreme. The lightfish burst out with a blinding light, and the body of the profound level weapon was directly exposed, a terrifying aura spreading above it. Ruo Xiang's expression was also extremely ugly, and he shouted, "Block it." Although the scene in front of him made him feel a sense of danger, he did not think that this bit of strength could contend with the deep-sea giant beast. The light that had been compressed to the extreme finally bloomed, like a flower bud showing off its lifetime's beauty in an instant. It was beautiful and flamboyant. Boom! The great 5 Elements enchantment collapsed, the sky shattered, and the earth sank. The entire space was filled with flying sand and stones. They could not see or hear anything, as if it was the end of the world. Everyone from the 2 races fell into a state of panic and wanted to save themselves. However, they realized that their strength was just a drop in the ocean. They were caught up in it and could do nothing. Pu Jinshan spat out a mouthful of blood and his entire body withered as if his life force had been exhausted. In an instant, he had aged by several decades. Yunxiao sighed. With a flash of light from the Divine Realm tablet between his eyebrows, he was taken in. In the dusky sky, the moon-like pupils in his eyes flickered, and he could immediately see where the huge-faced beast was. The force of the barrier's collapse had also caused some damage to it. One side of its huge face had been badly damaged by the explosion. Its skin and flesh had been directly turned over, and a large amount of blood was flowing down. However, it was only a superficial wound. Instead, it made the giant beast even angrier. It roared repeatedly in the midst of the flying sand and stones. Waves of power rushed out, as if it really wanted to overturn the entire world. On the head of the furious giant-faced beast, Ruo Xiang was also extremely shocked. He felt that he was starting to lose control of the giant-faced beast. All of a sudden, a faint light flickered in the dark sky. It grew brighter and brighter, like a lighthouse, giving people hope in this desperate world. Everyone's shocked mood calmed down at once as they looked at the light beam in shock. They didn't know what kind of power could penetrate through such a majestic force without any obstruction. Is that a Mangchong warship? In the darkness, Jing Yongyi revealed a look of doubt. That beam of light was indeed similar to the full-force attack of his netherworld battleship. Boom! The ray of light seemed to be moving slowly, but in reality, it was like 10,000 horses galloping across the sky. Boom! When the beam of light got closer, it was discovered to be unusually thick. It blasted on the crazy huge-faced beast, causing the power around its body to shrink continuously. Its entire huge body trembled and retreated continuously. The huge-faced beast was blasted hundreds of meters away, and the entire space where sand and stones were flying suddenly stabilized. The violent power gradually dissipated, and the dark clouds parted to reveal the clear sky. Everyone looked around in fear and found that they were still in the previous chaotic battle. Many members of the Sea Tribe were around them. They were shocked and flew away in a hurry. The oceanic species experts also felt the same way. The 2 groups of people were clearly separated in the sky, and they looked at each other with lingering fear. However, everyone's gazes quickly gathered in the distance. From where the beam of light had shot out, a magnificent and huge battleship was rapidly approaching. That battleship was abnormally large and majestic, like a moving city. Just its appearance gave people a strong sense of oppression. It let out a huge roar like rolling thunder. The starship flew through the air, occasionally giving off an illusory feeling, as if what one saw was an illusion, and what one saw did not exist. Many martial emperor powerhouses were shocked. They knew that it was a form of self-protection called space jump. Because the warship was so huge, once it was attacked, there was a 100% chance that it would be hit. Therefore, some powerful alchemists had designed such a secret technique that could allow the warship to perform space jumps at a certain frequency during its journey or even when it stopped. This way, it could avoid most attacks and was the best protection for the warship. Ruo Xiang's face instantly turned ashen. He had stayed on the continent for a long time, so he immediately recognized the grade of the warship in front of him. Moreover, at the bow of the warship, a light beam was rapidly condensing, preparing for the next attack. At this moment, although the huge-faced beast did not suffer any substantial damage, its aura was not as strong as before. As the controller, he could clearly feel that the huge-faced beast's aura was weakening with every breath it took. Judging from the level of the attack just now, the battleship might not be able to do anything to the giant-faced beast. However, if the stalemate continued, it would be really dangerous. Ruo Xiang's expression changed several times, and he started to hesitate. Yunxiao's pupils constricted as well, and the crescent moon disappeared from his eyes. He returned to his clear state and looked quietly at the 9th-tier ultimate warship that was speeding toward him. Go. Retreat to the ocean. Ruo Xiang looked resentfully at Yunxiao, who was standing in the air with his hands behind his back and an indifferent expression on his face, and finally made the difficult decision to retreat. However, their all-out attack this time had not been able to take down White Surge City. Furthermore, they had also exposed that he could control the deep-sea giant beast. It would probably be even more difficult to attack the city next time. He glanced gloomily at Baicheng City, and his expression suddenly froze for a moment. The scene before him was a barren wasteland, and there was no sign of a city at all. Ruo Xiang was stunned for a moment. He didn't know if this counted as razing Baicheng City to the ground. Would this battle be a win or a loss? He couldn't give an explanation, so he turned around and left in a depressed mood. After receiving the order, the oceanic species powerhouses quickly retreated from the sky. They surrounded the huge-faced beast like ants and headed toward the sea. The human cultivators all looked on expressionlessly as the powerful enemy fled. No one dared to give chase, nor did they have the slightest intention of giving chase. Li Yunxiao's emotions were also extremely complicated. Although the powerful enemy had left, the entire city was still in a daze. He was completely dejected and didn't know what to do. He was filled with regret. If he had given Yunxiao full authority to deal with the enemies and trapped them outside the city, even if the 5 elements enchantment exploded, the city's defensive array would still be there, and they would not have been destroyed like this. The 9th-grade battleship arrived and stopped not far away. It did not seem to have any intention of chasing. Before everyone could enjoy the feeling of surviving a disaster, they were immediately attracted by the battleship in front of them. Although not many people had seen such a huge battleship, they could guess what it was without using their brains. I wonder which lord has come to rescue us. Ruan Shichuan was the first to ask loudly. Looking around, everyone was covered in injuries, but he seemed to be unscathed. It was unknown how he had managed to protect himself so well. The rumbling from the battleship became softer and softer. A beam of light shot out from the bottom of the battleship and several figures appeared. The person in front was dressed in white and had a handsome face. He had a calm expression and was looking at the crowd with a smile. Ruan Shichuan was shocked. He hurriedly went forward and respectfully said, "So it's young Master Li Feng of the Baiming family." Baiming family. It's actually the Baiming family. No wonder. There are only a handful of people on the continent who can own a 9th-grade warship. We're saved. Everyone is saved. I didn't expect that the Baiming family would also make a move. A 9th-grade warship is a treasure even for a super family. They won't show their faces easily. I've really broadened my horizons today. You guys don't know this, but young Master Li Feng is already the appointed successor of the Baiming family. That's why he has the right to use such a huge warship. On the ruins, all the survivors were discussing. Everyone had different expressions, but most of them were happy. Baiming Lifeng looked at the crowd with a smile, but he did not say anything. He slowly turned his eyes to Yunxiao, who was not far away.